And I think we can go ahead and get started. So welcome to our March scoop. It feels like spring outside today. So tonight, Emelie Frojen, our climate and energy associate, will be talking to everyone about her work. She works a lot with Mike Eisenfeld in New Mexico on New Mexico issues, but tonight she's going to be talking about, one more person, mainly her Colorado work. So she's our head person for Colorado energy issues, just so you all know. And tonight she's going to be talking about LPEA and updating everyone on what's happening there with the election. There's some exciting news, and just giving you a forecast of our energy future goals and what the energy future in Durango looks like. So go ahead, Emelie, and thanks everyone for joining tonight. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Raina, for that. That was the correct Norwegian pronunciation of my name, which is where it comes from. So, you get bonus points for that. Yes, as Raina said, my name is Emelie Frojen, and I'm the Energy and Climate Program Associate here at San Juan Citizens Alliance. And want to thank you all for showing up today. Just a FYI, I work at the a little bit, volunteer at the Four Corners Drum Club in town, and I lost my voice last Tuesday, 2 days ago, working there over some rock saws. So if anybody has trouble hearing me or understanding me, please feel free to just interject and let me know, because I can kind of cut in and out sometimes. So just that's a preface here. So I've been working at SJCA since last June. And like Rena said, I work in New Mexico and Colorado, everywhere from the local to the state to the federal level, all on climate and energy issues. And I also, a really great part of the work I do is that I get to coordinate a group called the Energy Futures Group. And this is a group of, I would say really involved citizens, but really they're local experts on local sustainability and energy here. And so I've learned so much from them. And a lot of the work that I'll be talking about is work that we've all done together and work that I've joined in on in the past year. And so that's been a really great aspect of my job. So today, I'm just going to give you a little brief roadmap of what I'm going to talk about here. I'm going to give everybody an update on the LPEA election for the board members, and then we're going to talk about the new partial buyout that's been happening at LPEA, and then I'm going to talk about local sustainability issues and kind of the sustainability plan and our involvement in that. And so the big news of the day is that the LPEA election has been canceled. So for the first time since 2004, the election was canceled. What can happen is that the LPEA can cancel certain district elections for their board members if no one runs against the incumbents. And this year, no one ran against any of the 4 incumbents for the 4 districts. So what this means is that there will not be a board position election this coming year. And the board members reelected are Holly Metzler, who's District 1 in Archuleta County. We've got Dan Huntington in District 2, which is South and West La Plata County. Joe Lewandowski, District 3, City of Durango. And John Witchell, which is District 4, North and East La Plata County. So those will be the reelected board members for the next 3 years. And so this is a pretty wild thing that has not happened in a long time. And I think it's for many reasons, but I think a huge part is LPA is doing really great work. So I'm really excited to see these 4 board members continue on going forward. I'm gonna proceed to talk about some of their great work. Would love to encourage you all. They're still going to hold their annual meeting, which is on the 12th of May. And I'm going to put some information here in the chat if folks are curious in attending that. Here is more of the information on the annual meeting. It's May 12th from 5 to 6:30, and it's both at Bodo Park. And from what I gather, you can also participate via Zoom. And I just want to encourage folks to show up. It's a really good way to meet some of your board members and show your support for the partial buyout and kind of advocate for issues that matter to you. So that's something I'd like to encourage you all to attend. Also want to let everyone know that there still is an important board election happening in Montezuma County. So Empire Electric Association is Montezuma County's version of LPEA, and they have a very similar contract and relationship with Tri-State. And as we are all obviously aware, air pollution and climate change affects us all, whether you live in Montezuma County, La Plata County, or San Juan County, New Mexico. We all are here sharing the same climate and airshed. So it's still important to kind of keep alert to that news. And if anyone here lives in Montezuma County, to for sure vote and participate in that election. There's a Montezuma County and Empire Electric Association has a less progressive makeup than LPEA and is definitely a more challenging area to run progressive candidates. This year, there's someone named Corey Robinson. He is a National Geographic explorer and filmmaker, and he is running for the Empire Electric Board. And so we are gonna take some of this energy that we are saving from not working on the LP election to kind of help him out a little bit. So if there's any folks that want to spare a few volunteer hours to get him elected or are interested in learning more, you can feel free to reach out to me. I'll give you my email and phone number at the end of this, but it's also on our website. So that's just something that I want to make sure everyone here is aware that we're still, it's still important and it's happening. So yeah, let's talk about the partial buyout. This was voted on by the board in February, so last month's board meeting. And what it is, it's a partial buyout of LPEA's existing contract with Tri-State. So LPEA has an existing contract with Tri-State that requires them to buy 95% of the power from Tri-State. Under the new contract, the LPEA will be able to provide a 50-50 split between Tri-State and either new purchasing from others or local generation. And they announced last year that they are working on a contract with Crossover Energy to meet the other 50%. So 50% of this, after the partial buyout, 50% of our electricity will still come from Tri-State. And I want to talk about that aspect first. We at SJCA have been working really hard on, in addition to moving away from Tri-State, while we still have this contract and still have a relationship with them, how do we make Tri-State better? So how are we, and we've been doing that by working on making Tri-State's energy makeup more sustainable by engaging in their energy resource plan process, which is a kind of a plan that they make, and submit to the Colorado Public Utility Commission on their kind of plan looking forward on their energy makeup. So we engaged in that process in advocating for sustainable solutions there. And there was a settlement that was reached regarding I'm going to call it the ERP process. And the acronym that stands for the Energy Resource Plan. So Electric Resource Plan. So that's just ERP is a little bit less of a mouthful. So a settlement was reached in the ERP process earlier this year. And us, along with other environmental groups, strongly support this settlement, which brings cheaper, cleaner electricity to rural Colorado, but it also requires plans to support workers and communities that are going to be impacted by the energy transition, which is really important. The settlement itself is a little bit wonky, so feel free to either write down a question or put it in the chat and I can address it. But I'll just go over a few of the major wins in the settlement from the environmental side. So Craig 3 is a coal-fired power plant in Colorado, and it is a huge source of emissions and a big part of Tri-State's energy makeup currently. And the settlement requires that Craig 3's retirement date be decided in phase 2 of the ERP. So that's going to happen later this year. And why that's important is we want to have a date decided on that because the economic and environmental impacts of Craig 3 are staggering. So Tri-State is currently, their preferred plan is to retire it by 2030, but current modeling shows that retiring Craig 3 coal plant by 2026 would save customers $43 million. So that's a big aspect of this, is deciding that retirement date sooner rather than later. Another win of the settlement is that Tri-State decided to model any new gas plants on a 20-year useful life versus a 40-year useful life. And this is really great because new gas plants, it basically ensures that Tri-State's not going to build new expensive gas plants that would burn fossil fuels past 2050. Another great aspect of this settlement is that Tri-State committed to achieving energy efficiency goals, and they committed to limit their CO2 emissions starting in 2025 and achieving 80% CO2 reductions by 2030. So that's really great. And that spans the life of our contract also with Tri-State. And then finally, I think a really important aspect of the settlement that set the precedent for our region is that Tri-State agreed to put workforce transition plan in progress by the end of 2022. So Tri-State is agreeing to develop community assistance plans for the city of Craig and to make sure the community is supported in its transition to cleaner energy. And while that's not our local area in Craig 3, it is not here, it sets a really great precedent for all the energy transition going on in the Four Corners, and sets a good precedent for just transition principles that can be applied here. So that recovers the 50% from Tri-State that the partial buyout will be using going forward. And that 50% translates, if anyone's curious, to a 71 megawatt split. Now, the other 71 megawatts or other 50% is going to be coming from crossover energy. This is all going to ideally be starting in 2024. And crossover energy will be supplying low-cost renewable energy to LPEA, which leads me to my discussion about why this partial buyout is so great. So it's going to save LPEA lots of money. So there's going to be $7 million of annual savings. And then additionally, so power cost is the #1 driver in LPEA's budget. So that $77 million is going to go a long way. And then in a 5-year period, it will save $35 million. And then in the lifetime of the contract, the partial buyout will save LPEA $140 million. And so that is definitely something that we are also hopefully going to see as customers of LPEA, which is great. And then another big win is that when the deal is finalized, LPEA will immediately reduce its carbon footprint by 50%. So that's a huge step towards meeting our local renewable and greenhouse gas goals. So that's a big win. And 75% of the new power will be renewable, and which is very exciting. And then finally, the partial contract, the partial buyout does not exclude a full buyout. So that's great. That's something that we were kind of, some environmentalists were concerned going into it, is whether this would be a final decision, and it does not exclude a full buyout later. And as you can see in the graph here, the savings are, really big for the partial buyout in the beginning, and then kind of merge as the savings go towards the end of 2040. So we're leaving that door open, which is great. And then the next steps regarding this partial buyout is that it needs to be approved by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Some of you may have heard this called FERC before. So that's the next step, is getting FERC approval of this partial buyout. Next, I would like to talk about our local sustainability here. So there are 2 other areas of Durango-specific local sustainability efforts that the Energy Futures Group and I focus on. And one of them is regarding the city of Durango. So some of you may be familiar, in August of 2019, Durango City Council adopted a goal to achieve 50% renewable electricity by 2030 and 100% renewable electricity by 2050. And in December, the city adopted these goals to also having a 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions compared to 2016 levels by 2030, and 100% greenhouse gas emission reduction compared to 2016 levels by 2050. So that extends that renewable electricity goal to greenhouse gas emissions. And towards the end of last year, we as an Energy Futures Group and San Juan Citizens Alliance began focusing our energy on improving that sustainability process and moving us, our city, towards actually achieving those goals. And we did this through engaging in the city sustainability plan process and writing and organizing folks to show up to city council meetings. Our two main, and folks here can also add in the end if there's other complaints, but our kind of two main issues that we had at the moment were the time span between creating these goals in 2019 and the implementation or lack thereof by today, 2022. So we have been focusing on increasing that timeline. So we think that it's taken a little bit too long to kind of hit the ground moving with these sustainability goals. And that's been something that we've been advocating for, speeding up that process. And then additionally, a huge aspect of what we were advocating for is increased accountability and tracking regarding greenhouse gas emissions and overall sustainability. So we were concerned about how we are going to know whether we've met these, 50% greenhouse gas emission reduction by 2030 if we don't know how much we were emitting in 2016, how much we're emitting today, and how much our actions reach that 50% reduction. So 50% from what, and how are we getting there? So that was something that we are concerned about, making sure that we have, hard numbers to show how we track that progress and how we know when we've met our goals. So through that, the city also in that time frame hired a new city sustainability manager, Marty, who's on this call, maybe wants to interject in a little bit and correct me of all the things I might be misstating, but he's been doing a great job, and he's met with our group, Energy Futures, a few times once, and I've met with him as well in working on the city sustainability plan. And I think one key improvement that we're really excited about that been working towards making are these key performance indicators and adding tracking progress to the city sustainability plan. And so we're very excited about that. And then we also had the city manager, Jose Madrigal, speak at our December GBR. I'm going to put a link to that video in the chat if anyone here wasn't able to make it. He kind of talked about citywide sustainability actions, and I found that to be a great green business roundtable. So that is the work that we've been engaging in on the city front, and we'll continue to work on there. And then lastly, in this area, we also do some work on 9R. So we had the new 9R superintendent speak at our GBR last month, and there's a YouTube video in the chat of her great talk. And so I would recommend folks watch that. And I will say that I am still getting caught up on all of the 9R bond stuff, but we have been engaged, and we have folks who are part of our Energy Futures group who are on the 9R Sustainability Task Force and are work really hard in making sure that the 9R bonds are being implemented and moving towards a more sustainable school district. So one more slide here. I just want to talk about some ways you can get involved. So if you're interested in hearing more about this work or the energy and climate work I do at the Colorado state level, the New Mexico level, or at the federal level, please feel free to call or email me. My phone number is an emailer right up on the screen there. And then, like I said, the Energy Futures group, which is open to everybody, and it's a group of really involved citizens and local experts on energy issues here. We meet the first and third Tuesday of every month from 4 to 5 p.m. And we're currently meeting virtually, though there's been some discussion about maybe switching to a once a month in person, once a month online format. So email me if you'd like to be added to that list or get involved there. And then we are also planning on doing a fun outside event towards the end of spring to just bring folks together in person, in the sun, to talk about local energy issues. You know, we normally do an LPEA event or some sort of celebration regarding the election. And now that we don't have that, we want to use this opportunity to re-engage folks on all these other local energy issues happening. So keep your eye out in your email from San Juan Citizens Alliance about that coming up at the end of the spring. Then the last thing I want to plug is that Dan Harms, the professional engineer and vice president of grid solutions at La Plata Electric, is going to be talking at our next Green Business Roundtable on achieving a carbon neutral all electric future. And so that's April 13th at the Powerhouse at noon. And you can register for that. And the link I just put in the chat. And that's going to be a great way to further this conversation. So with that, I'd love to open this up to questions from folks. Feel free to, let me just stop sharing my screen here so I can see everybody. And feel free to raise your hand or just unmute yourself. Also, any questions can span all of our work. Oh, Marty, hi. Thanks for raising your hand.
I'm getting better at that. I've had meetings that required it. But anyway, yeah, thanks for all the updates. It's really helpful to see the big picture and overall landscape of just energy and climate work in our region. I very much recognize this is not, just focused on the city. I can answer questions from folks around this work at the city, but I just wanted to echo that, the excitement I have around finalizing the sustainability plan. Obviously, that was delayed a little bit between the transition from Imogen to myself in the sustainability manager position for the city. But we are getting really close to that. And our timeline is to bring that to council in May. And so I'll share with folks more information about that as it comes along. And then, yeah, the plan certainly has a really strong focus on annual reporting for key indicators, and then also just looking at ways to report out on actions that have been completed within a given year that are related to sustainability. I presented a year-end report in January to City Council, just like a week after I started the job. So that was an interesting experience, but it was really well received from City Council to get that report that kind of summarized all of the actions that have been taken. And then when Jose presented at Green Business Roundtable, I know the city, we really appreciated that opportunity to share just everything that we're doing, while also, all the actions, great to share those, but also want to recognize that, yes, it comes down to the data and the numbers, and we are committed to getting better and more consistent at tracking all of that and reporting it out. So.
Thanks, Marty. Thanks for that update.
Emelie,
Hi.
This is Buzz Bricka. I can't video myself. I've been censored. But who is Crossover Energy? What I'm not familiar with that name as a player in LPEA's world.
Yeah, so they are a pretty national group, and honestly, I am not the most familiar with them either. They're pretty new, and they're called Crossover Energy Partners. I can put their information in the chat, and they're currently, let me just make this to everybody here. They currently have a mix of, I've been more focused on their energy source. So they're currently a mixed energy source, but moving towards renewable, and LPEA will be purchasing renewable energy, 75% renewable energy from them. So that's kind of the most information I have about them. Let me get this. So they're financed by, also, this is another information that I can put another great article about this in the chat. And this is kind of the information I have on Crossover Energy thus far, is that they're also financed by Wall Street firm KKR, but that's kind of the bulk information that I have, mostly focusing on the energy makeup that they'll be providing to LPEA, but which will be 75% renewable to start in 2024. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And
Yeah.
is there, do you anticipate any difficulty getting FERC approval for this change in our energy sources?
I don't. I think that all the tea leaves read that FERC is gonna approve this contract. So yeah, I think that it's looking really positive there.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Seth?
Yeah, this is Seth Burtney, and I'm on the Durango Parks and Rec Advisory Board. And one thing that I've always imagined is that symbolically, the city, especially in high profile or highly public resources, can be a symbolic leader. You know, they can do things to evidence that they're doing things. You know, for instance, low flow shower heads in the Parks and Recreation facility. You know, things like that that are intentionally visible to signify one, kind of a dedication on the part of the city, but also to invite followership, people who would be inclined to say, oh, I never really thought about that. That was okay, or whatever. And that might be any number of things. It could be, oh, watering with you know, conservation techniques on lawns, but doing so in a way where you sign it and say, hey, we're doing this in a manner that is, you know, measuring the moisture content of the soil as opposed to doing it on a timer, whatever. Things that say, here's what we're doing in order to invite others to perhaps replicate that same kind of sustainable behavior. And I don't know if you guys contemplate that, but I wanted to invite it into your conversation.
And yeah, that's a great point, Seth. I think that we agree, you know, like the city can be a great leader on these issues and showing what can be done and how folks can follow in their footsteps. And I think that is, I'm sure, something that Marty's been taking to heart while working on the plan, and something that we've been advocating for. And in that, yeah, I'm not too familiar about like water use and that kind of stuff, but I do know for energy, you know, we also see the city as kind of a leader for both its citizens and the greater areas, kind of taking action on that.
And you know, I mentioned water because it came to mind, but this could be installing LED bulbs, it could be photovoltaic, you know, cells, it could be anything that we think is a sensible practice to adopt as a community. But you almost have to demonstrate it sometimes, or offer people an example of, oh, okay, that makes sense, or you see it. And some things are less visible than others. And I thought it'd be good to reflect on sometimes the savings you may generate are, you know, let's say modest or relatively inconsequential, but replicated 100 times might be substantial. And so I just want the city to embrace that, and perhaps wherever else that may make sense. And that could be adopting electrical vehicles, you name it. It could be any number of things, but do it intentionally and publicly with the intention of conveying that that's a demonstration of what a success can look like.
Certainly. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And yeah, the example also solar panels, yeah, seeing that on a city building and maybe getting, you know, some information about the savings that they're doing, maybe incentivize you to do the same at your home. So that's a great point. Werner, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I have two announcements. First, there will be, FORCO is organizing an Earth Day celebration on the April 23rd. And it starts with a parade on Main Street and then goes to Rotary Park. And there are quite a few presenters there and speakers. So it's really something to attend. Also, she managed to get the bear dancers to show up from the Southern Ute tribe. The second thing, just a little victory, you know, after years of talking to the home builders that all their homes at the parade should be energy rated. this is the first year they actually committed themselves to, and there's a good likelihood, I think it's actually a requirement that every home at a parade has to have an energy efficiency rating. So change is possible.
That's such great news, Werner. I'm glad that your hard work has been paying off on that. I'm really happy to hear that. And yeah, folks should definitely show up for the Earth Day parade and celebration. Any other questions, comments, spanning any sort of energy and climate work? I'm not sure if I can answer any energy and climate question, but you can feel free to discuss them.
Emelie, what is the term that these the new term? Is it 2 years? Or what are the LPEA directors?
They're
have?
3-year terms.
3 years. Okay.
So there's 3 board members from each of the 4 districts, and each person kind of cycles through them up each year.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Well, I want to thank you all. If anyone has any questions or things that pop into their head.
Oh, there's
Werner.
one more. Yeah.
I see you, Werner.
Well, you know, with LPA, this is an 18-year process where we try to get a progressive board on, a majority progressive member. So this is really, again, another thing that we ought to feel good about and congratulate about ourselves. It took quite a few years, but look where we got.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely am grateful for all the hard work that folks here have been putting in for 18 years or longer. So it's really coming in at the easy part, but it's been really, yeah, we're seeing the payoff now, which is so great.
Emelie, what is the status of the board over in Montezuma County? You mentioned the election, but what is the flavor of their board? Are they progressive? Are they conservative? Are they dug in? I have no insight into that.
Yeah, the makeup is conservative, very, very conservative, and progressive candidates typically have not won. It's been a very hard area to run candidates, and it's been a hard area for SJCA. Sometimes our involvement is actually detrimental to some candidates there. Having kind of our name or branding, folks just might get a bad taste in their mouth. So we've been doing kind of more behind the scene work with them because of that. And it's just kind of a hard region to run in. There's been, sometimes folks who run get death threats or annexed from certain community things. Like there's been a lot of issues in the recent years with like the politicalization of the board. So that's, I think, been a big challenge for us in looking at our involvement, but also wanting to meet our goals and working in, in that community and working towards getting more progressive candidates elected. So that's kind of been a big challenge for us. So it's definitely a very conservative board, but this new candidate, Corey, could be a really great, Corey Robinson. I guess he's got some pretty high, I'm not too familiar with him, but I'm gonna have a call tomorrow to kind of get plugged in on how we can help him with all this extra time I have now. And he's got some local kind of veterans supporting him, and kind of a lot of big people in the area are a fan of him and are endorsing him. So apparently I think he could be a winner, could be the first to start off Empire Electric Association, but their board is definitely a challenging area to run in right now.
Do you have a point person to contact for helping them out?
Me. No, I have a
Okay.
we
That's
have
simple.
Joel Dyer. He is with this group called Reset that does rural electric co-op elections just across the country. And he's in Grand Junction, but kind of his Reset does they've helped LPEA elections before. They help support us in LPEA, and they're the ones that are helping support him in Empire Electric Association. And so, but they're not local. So I'm gonna help Joel out with his campaign a little bit there. So yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. In the chat too. It's the Car Electric Co-op Board. We've got another great candidate going down there. So folks, anyone here knows folks who live there, you should encourage your friends to vote for Ward McCartney there. So thanks for Nancy for putting that in the chat. Great. Well, if any more questions. Great. Well, folks who have any additional questions or want to join our Energy Futures group, please, email me, Emelie@SanJuanCitizens.org, and I can get you plugged in where you want to be plugged in. Or if you just want to get more involved with New Mexico energy and climate, or Colorado energy and climate, or some more of the federal work that we're doing. So feel free to shoot me an email. And nice seeing all these faces here. So hope everyone has a nice rest of their Thursday and a good weekend.
Thanks, Emelie.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks, Emelie.
Thank you, Emelie.
Thanks.
Thanks for waiting a little bit for all these folks to join us.
Yeah, glad we got a good group here.
We had fun talking to you.
Yeah, see you next month, maybe,
Bye.
or whenever. If not next month, sometime. Adios.